Hi, everyone. Glad to see you back here at Silver Tears Tarot. We're going to do a really special question today. I talked about this one a little bit in the extended from yesterday's reading, if you saw that. This one is going to be a reading for people who are working with someone exclusively in the astral realm or almost exclusively. If that's how you would classify your relationship, then this is going to be a reading that was specifically requested. And so I don't know if it's going to end up being a smaller portion of our collective than usual, but we'll see. So we'll give it a try. It's going to just be a general reading. It's for people within this collective that would classify their situation that way. So it's not going to resonate with everybody, and of course it shouldn't. It's going to be, this is your story. So if it's about whether or not it resonates with you, and if it does, then you're going to want to probably look back and see maybe some of the other messages and see if they resonate with you also. And then if they do, then maybe this will be a good channel for you to subscribe to. So when we talk about this one, if this is somebody that you maybe haven't had that relationship with in the physical. Some of you have had a very specific relationship in the physical and it has completely ended, and the only interaction you have at this point is in the astral realm. And then for others of you, that's the way the relationship has existed the vast majority of the time or all of the time. So that's kind of the backdrop as we're thinking through what is this reading really asking. Um, so there is, just like with the rest of the soulmates in our situations, there's this element of wanting to come back together, and a likelihood of coming back together in some sort of soul reconciliation. And so the first question is really kind of how that works and what it is likely to look like. So I know asking a question like that, it's difficult to say what kind of answers we're going to get out of it, but we're just going to see what sort of messages want to come out. So whether it is something where you would come together and be in a long-term union after that in the physical realm, or is this kind of a ships passing in the night thing where you give each other some lessons and you move past each other. So that's, oh, right away, we've got the Empress in the reverse. As soon as I got the question out, it's like the cards were like, I already know what I want to say about this. So we've got the Empress in the reverse. This is a situation where it's saying that there is something is not ready, someone is not ready. Let's dig a little bit farther into that. And this is one of those soulmate snapshot readings. So it might not be as long, but it might be just as scrappy. So let's see. A lot of these have kind of that feeling that you get in the extendeds, because I don't know if you guys have been watching the extendeds, but some of those have been getting kind of nuts lately. And we had an unorthodox extended reading yesterday, and now I just want to make sure that we allow whatever to flow with this. So it does look like something somewhere is not ready. There's a need to look at the big picture and to do some work around the soul structure. So this is not a physical realm thing. This is an astral realm thing and a spiritual realm thing. There needs to be some sense of stability that comes in on the spiritual side that's going to allow you to be able to function elsewhere in a stable way. So all of the lessons that keep coming out are still relevant for you to be learning. Although I think we'll also kind of look and just kind of see what else you need to know when we get to the part where I would usually put the lessons. The idea of meeting up or coming together, one of the main outputs of that, or one of the main results of that, is feeling like the pain goes away. And so that's going to happen regardless. So I would just say it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be the same for everybody. That's one of the first things that I'll say. There is a need to get more stable in that spiritual realm that'll allow you to operate more stably in all other realms, physical, astral, otherwise, doesn't matter. That that emotional and spiritual stability is going to be helpful. It's also going to be part of what helps make the pain go away, but you need to make that connection with the higher self and with your intuition so that you can feel the protection that is there. So you're receiving a protection, but you may or may not really be getting the full extent of it because you may not be feeling it. Right now, one of the things that you're experiencing is kind of a back and forth sort of energy that may not be very comfortable. It's probably difficult to get very much peace. And there is definitely a need to keep yourself open to learning. There's so we've seen that come out in a lot of these readings: the Princess of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles, and whatever the equivalent is in the various decks. So here it is again. This is the Princess of Pentacles, and this one talks about leaving yourself open to what you need to understand and what you need to see, what you need to know. Okay, here are a couple more cards. We're at least going to take the top ones. We don't always take all the cards, but if you guys have been here for a while, you've already seen my way of pulling cards. So, all right, there is a need for going into that thinking cave. There's a need for going into that thinking cave prior to any sort of reconciliation that the two of you might have. There are some of you who are not going to meet in this experience, in this physical life. But it's not going to bother you because you're still going to get to a place in this balancing that you're doing. One of the reasons that you fit so well into this soulmate cycle and why you fit so well into this collective is because many of the same messages apply for you, and you still come out with this feeling of reconciliation. There's also an ability to have the love and communication to a lesser extent. That's more of an honorable mention. But this Ace of Cups allows you to come out in a very different place. So whether you end up with this person that is opening you up to supreme love, or whether you end up remaining connected with them in a spiritual way, there is you it's I don't know how to express it any other way besides it's going to be fine regardless of how this turns out. This is going to be something that you ultimately deem very successful. The pain will be gone, the comfort will be there. And this, the Eight of Swords, I really didn't talk about this one very much. With the Eight of Swords, this is about you not even feeling the need to overthink it. You're going to do this right and feel like you are confident in how whatever it is that happens between the two of you, because you're giving it so much thought and you're making sure at this point that you are mindful about the path you take forward. You're not just throwing yourself out there. That's interesting. So basically, it's not necessarily going to be the same for each of you. You can meet or you cannot meet and come together. You could spend the rest of your life together. It's difficult to say, but regardless, you're going to be fine. You're going to be opened up for love. You're going to continue to be connected with this person, and you're going to have a cessation of the pain of separation. So that's really important. But what I will say is that something is not ready right now. So there's one of the questions that this person asked. So I got a couple of questions from a specific person who is kind of going through this. And one of the questions, I'm going to ask it verbatim because I love the way it's written. Are the expectations that we currently have from the astral going to make the human experience a disappointing one, or an amazing one, or somewhere in between? We're just going to use that as this question here. So basically, how is it going to compare? How will the experience that you have in the physical compare with what you've been experiencing in your astral experiences? So, whew, this is the Devil in reverse. And the first thing that wanted to come out was this Three of Swords that, I mean, almost just wants to be on top over here, that says, you're not going to care. You're going to be fine. This Ace of Cups and this Three of Swords in reverse are saying, this is not pain. This is happiness. You may take a little while to get to the place where you truly realize that, but that's what's happening here. So the comparison, there is no comparison, is kind of what I'm getting there. You are going to be satisfied with the result, and you're going to be untied from something that currently controls you in a way that you don't want to be controlled. This is new, not something that's happened before in the past. So this is the Six of Cups. This may be somebody with whom you have shared multiple experiences, someone you have maybe shared multiple lives. It doesn't matter. What happens next is not something that has precedence in the experience between the two of you. However, it is something that you're only now going to be ready for when the time comes. So we have over here that something is not quite ready as we talk about coming together in the physical realm. But over here, when we talk about how it's going to compare, one of the things that we see is that it helps to build your strength. And that's a response against fear. So, strength never happens in a vacuum. It's always a response to extant fear. And so here it looks like strength is having some success and being the is coming out on top, at least in the way that the two of you are impacting one another. So the Eight of Cups, you are sending one another out on these awakening. Um, Let me do both of them together. So the Eight of Cups it's a quest, okay, but you guys have sent yourselves out, or you sent each other out on these quests, but you haven't really given each other nearly enough information to complete the quest. And then there's all of there's sadness associated with this card, but it's really protection. You're trying to protect yourself. They're trying to protect themselves, not necessarily from one another. In fact, it's almost like you guys are back to back in the astral sense, trying to protect yourselves, and the only thing that's got your back is the other one. But yet, you guys are not necessarily working together to make good sense out of what's happening in the physical realm. It could be pretty confusing. That's one of the things that I definitely get from this. So with the Nine of Pentacles in the reverse, that's one of the impacts that it's going to have, is that it tends to add some confusion. It tends to add, this is more than just confusion. This is self-deceit. It tends to add a little bit of that. It's almost this dark, shadowy feeling of not knowing what to trust or what to expect from yourself. The defensiveness, it's born of the defensiveness, but this Nine of Pentacles in the reverse is really about feeling like you don't have it together, feeling like you don't realize your person has your back. And that's one of the things that in the physical may be prevalent. You may notice that in the physical you don't feel as confident with this person as you do in any other sense. Spiritually, you have no issues with them. You're able to go in and out. Sometimes you're able to communicate, have conversations, possibly, certainly to interact with one another. Give each other love, things like that. But here in the physical, things could be pretty difficult and pretty different. And that's one of the things that you've already been noticing in some cases. If you've got somebody that you were in a relationship with and you are now only interacting that way, what you'll notice is that feels pretty great, but why does it only happen there and it can't translate into the physical? And what you're noticing here is that physical may simply not really stack up. It may be somewhat disappointing compared with what's happening in the spiritual sense and on the astral plane. So you've got the Three of Wands here, which is suggesting that you may not be able to see all the roots that have started to grow for the two of you. And this is roots that have started to grow that are going to help you get to a place that allows you to rebuild. And here we've got the Tower that wants to bring everything down so that you can rebuild. This is a concept that has been coming out in the advice portion of the readings for quite some time now. But basically, it's saying that you've already kind of started the process in motion, and that you need to lean into this tower. Both of you are going to want to lean into this tower. You've got the Five of Pentacles. This is something that you're going to be healing from. That's more associated with. Oh gosh, it's associated with something that happened earlier on in your life, but it is very much an abandonment or a rejection worry. Not necessarily an injury, but a worry, a fear that is about that. It doesn't necessarily mean it happened, but you were dreadfully terrified of it happening. Somebody was going to leave. You were afraid a parent was going to leave. Something in here is coloring this situation. It's also making it really confusing to understand how you can move forward with your options. And honestly, until this tower comes down, it's going to be very difficult to understand what to do with those options, because that's where the clarity is going to come in, where you start to realize, okay, so here's what I can do, and here's maybe what I can't do. Until then, it's a little bit difficult to understand, and certainly has a heaviness to it that makes it difficult to look at. It's almost like a light that's too bright to look at, but it's not helping, not shedding light on something. It's so bright that you can't see whatever's in front of you. So it's a blinding sort of light, not as super helpful to understand what your options are going forward. But letting this tower fall is going to be very helpful in rebuilding a situation where that will be possible. Wow. Okay. So far, what we've seen, some of you will be coming together. Some of you are have already made your connection, and that's kind of how that's going to be. But either way, the common thread is it's not going to matter because you're going to end up healed, and the pain is going to be gone. As far as the 3D communication compared with the astral, it doesn't look like for most people it's going to really measure up, but it also doesn't look like it's necessarily going to matter because the healing that it brings you is so significant that you are in a place where you come away with an awakening that brings you to the next level. Also, I'm not sure in some of these cases how a 3D union could ever compare with what's happening in the spiritual and astral levels for some of you. So let's take another look here then into the situation just to understand. The person that asked these questions was asking if any precautions, if there were any precautions you should be taking and things you should know. And I would add to that general guidance. What do you need to be doing? So we're going to move in. We're going to add in a little bit of that focus question: what you should be looking at, what you should be thinking about, but definitely what precautions you would want to take. Although I think the first thing that jumps in is that no precaution is truly necessary, because anything that you do, you should be able to pretty much fix at this point. So most of the things, I mean, obviously there are some things that you would not be able to undo or you would not be able to fix. However, generally speaking, that's the feedback that we're getting. That the precautions are generally going to be just don't do anything you wouldn't ordinarily do, um, with regard to the situation. So we have the Nine of Fire. This is like the Nine of Wands, and it's in reverse. Okay, so this speaks to the lessons that you're here to learn and things that are going to help for you to get better about things as you move through the process. We also have the King of Cups, and this time it's coming out in the upright. In some previous readings, we've seen it coming out in the reverse, talking about that egoistic reduction, or I guess limitation of emotion and love. So I'll give love, but only so much because I want things to look a certain way. Your response to this will be different going forward, and your response when you see it within yourself will be different going forward because of some of the walls that you're no longer going to feel the need to guard, and you're going to try some things out and actually not guard those. It's going to throw you off balance a little bit, particularly with regard to this person. So you're going to get to a place where, as you're learning your lessons, you don't feel as comfortable with them in that spiritual and astral situation as you typically would. Here we have Temperance to show just how off balance you are, but this is part of your process. So basically, it's going to feel like a separation in more than just the physical for a short time. But that's part of, and maybe I guess this isn't a precaution, but it's something really helpful for you to be aware of as you work through your healing. It's going to feel like there is something that separates you for a little bit from a spiritual perspective. And then you've got the Death card coming in here in reverse, and the Ten of Cups coming in reverse. This is a reckoning, except you have to go with the flow and allow it to happen. So in our very last reading, I think yesterday, we got one of the oracle cards in the extended reading was about going with the flow. And that's the exact same feeling. So if you saw that, that's the exact same feeling that's coming out with this Death card. It's going with the flow in the best possible way. But the Ten of Cups in the reverse is really just talking about figuring out what it is that you truly want. Here it is, Nine of Cups, and allowing yourself to say, I'm going to be realistic about this. So Regardless of what comes your way, you're going to be able to move toward it. You're going to be able to give the proper engagement. And that's this chariot sort of feeling. I should really look at these cards as they're coming out, because I end up saying it and then I look over and I'm like, oh, yeah, that says it even better. So the chariot card does kind of speak to what this is unlocking for you, but it all has to do with figuring out what your happiness is now, what your happiness truly is, and how do you respond to everything that comes across your path. Because some things you're going to say, I definitely would like to get closer to that. And some things you're going to say, that's not for me, or I'm waiting for something better, or you have a variety of responses you could potentially have. Um, but this Ten of Cups in reverse is talking about actually getting to the heart of that and understanding how you truly will handle new things as they come your way. Is it too good to be true, or is it not? And when you get up closer, it's always somewhere in the gray area. How are you truly going to respond to it? Because your response can also not be black and white. The other thing to keep in mind here is that you may be holding on to too much as far as trying to manage things that are outside of your control. So anything where you're trying to exert control, look for that. Look for places where you're trying to exert control, either around the timing of the two of you getting together, or the nature of the way that you'll meet, or just here's the thing. This is what's coming out of the other side of it. You've got that willingness or that ability to give and receive love, and for that new emotion to flow, and the pain goes. So that's what you need to really, really know. There are definitely some complications in the physical as far as how that plays out, but a lot of that clears away as you work through some of these other pieces that you would be working through in order to bring yourself closer to that reconciliation of souls anyway. And keep in mind that that connection that you have and that interaction that you already have with this person speaks to how far you've already come. So just continue on that road, but don't carry too much that isn't yours to carry or that you don't control. Focus instead on what it is that you truly want and what you truly want to manifest. And that's where your focus is going to be. It's going to be something that comes out of it that is different from anything that has ever come before, but different in a way that is incredible freedom, and the dropping of some of the walls. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. This has been one of those soulmate snapshots. So there's no extended on this one, but hopefully this is helpful for those of you who are in this situation where the only interaction that you have, or almost the only interaction that you've ever had, could be on the astral level. So let me know what you think. I'll be back tomorrow with, I got to remember what it is that I'm planning on reading about tomorrow. I had a couple of questions that were kind of coming my direction, and I have to figure out how to pare them down and categorize them. So keep the questions coming, and I'll see you back in tomorrow's reading.